We're going to wellness girl chat today about cool things you should definitely know about your body. Welcome back to Wellness Fixes the Pod. I'm your host, Dr. Kelsey Vick, a board certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy and a pelvic floor physical therapist. And these fun facts or cool things about our body are things that I use almost daily as a physical therapist and things that I consistently come back to as ways to show how freaking cool our bodies are made. It's just amazing what our body can do without our conscious perception in order to protect us from different things. A lot of it actually has to do with protection. Now that I'm thinking back to all of the ones that I'll talk about today, a lot of it has to do with protection and just protecting us from harm or what we perceive as harm. So our body has some really cool mechanisms within it, and we're going to chat about those today because they get brought up in conversation a lot when I'm talking with people, just because I do think they're so cool. And so I'm hoping that you guys will also be able to share this information with others just as fun facts during a dinner party or something where if people are talking about the body and I don't know what setting it could be in, but if people are talking about the human body, you can add in this and sound super smart, but then also help other people learn how freaking cool our bodies are. So this first one I definitely use daily, and it is the concept of reciprocal inhibition. So as a physical therapist, there's a lot of times where we want to be able to relax or turn off a particular muscle. And in order to do that, we can activate the opposite muscle. So if you think about a bicep curl, you're bending your elbow, you're activating your bicep. But in order to do that, we have to turn off the elbow straighteners, which are the triceps, right? Because we can't just keep our elbows straight and bend our elbow. So there's a mechanism within the body that we call reciprocal inhibition, where activation of one muscle cues the opposite muscle or the opposing muscle to stop its action. So in a bicep curl, we're bending our elbow, so we're stopping the elbow straighteners, which are the triceps, from activating. The same thing can work with your quads and your hamstrings. If you have tight hamstrings, I'm going to say, or shorter hamstrings, which not everyone does. That's a topic for another day. But let's say you actually do have a length restriction in your hamstring where they are a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter. We can activate the quad, which will in turn automatically relax that back of the thigh or your hamstring muscles. So we activate the quad, we activate those knee straighteners in order to relax the ones that bend the knee, which are the hamstrings. I use this a lot also with the hip flexors and the glutes as well. So it's a concept I use a lot, especially in physical therapy throughout the entire body, but it's also something that you guys can utilize too. If you do struggle with muscle tightness or soreness after a run, you can start to incorporate this super cool thing that happens within the body where you can trick your body to relax a muscle by activating the opposite muscle. So the next umbrella topic is reflexes. And if you guys have ever been in the doctor's office and they have tapped or hammered your kneecap, like just under your kneecap, this is an entirely cool process that happens within the body without your conscious perception. So when they tap just below your kneecap on that patellar tendon, what they're really trying to check is the coordination and communication and the pathway between that muscle, the spinal cord, and then the response. So when they tap that patellar tendon, what happens is there are these sensors within the muscle, the quad muscle, the front of your thigh, that sense stretch. Tapping that tendon, tapping below that kneecap, they say, oh, I sense a stretch. That stretch sends a signal to the spinal cord that says, hey, we're getting stretched. We need to protect this stretch. That spinal cord then sends a response to activate that quadricep muscle and elicit that sort of kick response. You sense that stretch. The spinal cord helps coordinate the response to then shorten the muscle and decrease that stretch in order to protect that area. And this is all done so quickly without actually needing to send signals to the brain. So that's what they're really trying to see is, can your body coordinate that response? Are your nerves, your sensory signals that are sent into the spinal cord and your motor signals that are sent out of the spinal cord that are in charge of creating that response, are they all communicating or are they all connecting in the right way? So it tests the body's ability to quickly elicit response and the connection between all of those components. So super duper cool that we can not even think about it and our body can protect us in that way. A similar thing happens when we step on a sharp object. So my example is a Lego. If we step on a Lego, that freaking hurts, right? It's super sharp for No apparent reason really, but it is one of those things that I feel like a lot of us have experience with. So let's say you step on a Lego with your right foot and your body senses that pressure, that sharpness, and sends a signal to the spinal cord that says, that was sharp. I don't like that. It's not necessarily a pain signal, but it is like a, hey, that hurt. We need to protect against it. So you step on your Lego with your right foot. Then that signal gets sent to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord actually has to coordinate two different pathways. One to say, remove the right leg from that Lego. We do not want to step on that again. So your weight automatically gets taken off from that. But in order to do that, the spinal cord also has to send a signal to the left leg to say, hey, get ready to accept more weight because I am moving this right leg from that ouchie, that sharp Lego. So you step on the Lego with your right foot, that signal gets sent to the spinal cord, which then coordinates two responses. One, to bend that right leg away from the Lego, and then the second, to lock out or straighten the left leg in order to accept the weight that it now has to hold in order to protect the right leg. So it's a super cool, again, doesn't need conscious brain involvement in order to create that response or elicit that response. It's just something that happens subconsciously for us. So this is a very quick pathway because the neurons that do this are myelinated, which is basically this sheath that speeds up impulses. So it allows it to fast forward over some of the length of the nerve and the neurons so that it can elicit that response really quickly and save you from that sharp object. The same thing happens with heat, but it happens a little bit slower because these nerves are not myelinated. So they do not have that sheath that allows them to jump or fast forward along that pathway. So we sense heat if we touch a hot pan, and then our spinal cord helps to create that response of pulling the hand away. But this is why some of the time you might actually be consciously aware of that heat before you pull away. I know some of the time whenever I touch like a hot straightener or something, I'm like, gosh, I actually was consciously aware of that before the response happened. And that's just because that process happens a little bit slower, but it is still coordinated within the spinal cord. So the next super cool fun fact about the body revolves around pressure sensing. So the first one we'll talk about is what we call 2-point discrimination. So we have the ability with our eyes closed, and we usually do this with a sharp object, or not painful, it's not going to impale you, but a sharp object where we poke at certain intervals of distance between the two pokes until you are not able to tell or distinguish that it is 2 points. So we will do this by having you close your eyes. Usually it's at the feet because this is a neuropathy test where we are trying to see how well your nerves are connected to the bottom of your feet, which is a long way for them to travel, and how that signal is sent back up. It's a test we use a lot for neuropathy, but we can also do it in someone who might not have neuropathy, just as something cool to see that their body can do. So we usually have them close their eyes so they're not able to tell, and we'll alternate 2 points or 1 point, and they'll have to tell us, oh, that was 2 points or that was 1 point. And we'll slowly change the distances. So we might start super wide where you're definitely going to be able to tell that there's distance between those 2 points. But then we might do 2-point touch from a narrower distance so that it might be a little bit harder for you to tell. So it's just cool that our body can distinguish that those are 2 points, that is 1 point. But if we start to have communication issues and connection issues with our nerves down in our feet, especially in things like neuropathy or diabetic neuropathy, you lose that ability to sense that there are 2 separate points. And so you might sense that there's 1 point, even if the points are 4 inches apart. So we like to test that. And there are some like cutoff variables to know what's normal and what's not. We also have various deep pressure sensors within our system. So I think of this as a guy sitting on his wallet or a girl sitting on her phone in her back pocket. So we have sensors in those regions that sense basically a change in pressure. So when you first sit on your phone in your back pocket, you will sense there's something there. But once you sit on it for a period of time, that signal quiets because there's no longer a change in pressure. It is just your new normal. You will sense it as soon as you get up off of that phone or off of that wallet because that is a change in pressure. So this is why you might be looking at for your phone and you might not realize that, oh, I'm sitting on it, because your deep pressure sensors, some of the deep pressure sensors that sense a change in pressure haven't sensed a change in pressure while you've been sitting down. And so they're not giving you that signal that something's there. There are some that sense pressure the entire time. I think of a warm hug, and they just give constant feedback on the pressure that you're feeling. So constant signals about the pressure, not necessarily a change in pressure. I hope you guys are thinking this is just as cool as I do, because the thinking that the body has in it these subconscious systems to protect us or give us signals or communicate with us, I think is just so freaking cool. The last one we've chatted about before, but it revolves around the menstrual cycle, and primarily the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, which is that back half after ovulation. So in that luteal phase, we are overall more protective of our bodies, or our mindset and our bodies are shifted more into protection mode because it assumes this like healthy fertilization. We are growing a new baby. So our bodies shift towards protection mode a little bit, which means a lot of the resources are diverted to growing that human. It is maybe shunted away from muscle growth and muscle recovery and all of these things that happen in our follicular phase a little bit better towards more of this. Okay, now our goal is to support the development of this baby should conception and a healthy fertilization happen. But even if it doesn't, our body can still be shifted into this pattern. Our mindset, this one's the coolest part to me, but our mindset is also shifted in that luteal phase as well to protect us developing and growing that baby. So they say in your follicular phase, that first half of your cycle, you're more likely to approach opportunities. And in that luteal phase, you're more likely to avoid challenges or avoid failures because you're trying to protect. We also sense that different facial features, we stereotype a little bit more in that phase, again, in order to protect. We might see typically friendly faces that we would have viewed in the follicular phase as more scary or negative faces in our luteal phase because we are just shifted more towards that protection of a healthy pregnancy and a healthy fertilization. Even if we are not actually trying to get pregnant or becoming pregnant at all, it's still our body's shift towards that protection. So I think that's just super cool that I'm now conscious of it, I guess, because I'm in my luteal phase right now and feeling a little bit more negative about certain things. And so it allows me to give myself a little bit of grace if I experience some of those negative thought patterns. But it's also just cool that our bodies are built for that protection, and it's ultimately to protect the healthy pregnancy and healthy development and healthy growing of that baby. So clearly, I think the human body is so cool. And when I learned about some of these systems, and oh my gosh, do not even get me started on like our blood pressure system and our heart rate and our cardiovascular system as a whole, like that system is just so freaking cool. But we have sensors all over our body that are constantly sensing and sending feedback and signals regardless of conscious perception and conscious control. And I just think that is super cool that all of those are built into the body. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you had some fun just learning about it. And I know these are some of my absolute favorite, like cool things about the body. So I hope you are now able to contribute to a fun dinner party conversation about the female body, because I know those come up a lot. Not really, but hey, if it does, now you will have something to contribute. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys again in the next episode of Wellness Fixes the Pod.